time. It's a concept so ingrained in our daily lives that we rarely stop to question it. Clocks ticking, seconds passing, the cycle of days and seasons, time is everywhere. But what if we told you that time is not as simple as it seems? That in fact, time is not just a human experience, but a divine mystery. This question has preoccupied philosophers, theologians, and mystics for centuries. How does God relate to time? Does he exist outside of time, or does he experience time the way we do? And what does this mean for our own existence, our search for meaning, and the quest for salvation or enlightenment? The concept of time in philosophy and religion. Let's begin by exploring the nature of time itself. Time as we know it is linear. Past, present, future. Every moment is fleeting, always moving forward. This is how we experience life. But when we look to religious and philosophical traditions, time is often viewed through a more complex lens. In ancient Greek philosophy, thinkers like Heraclitus and Aristotle grappled with time's nature. Heraclitus famously said, "You cannot step into the same river twice." This emphasizes that time is always in flux, ever-changing and beyond our control. For Aristotle, time is linked to motion. Time exists as long as something is in motion. The very idea of time seems inseparable from change. But what about God? Does God experience time like we do? Or does he exist outside of it? This brings us to one of the central theological debates across different traditions. God outside of time. Classical views. Many theological traditions teach that God is eternal, but what does that really mean? In Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, God is often described as timeless, existing beyond time and space. This idea is rooted in the belief that God is the uncreated creator, the Alpha and the Omega, as described in the Bible. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. Revelation 22:13. In this view, God is not bound by time. He is outside it, observing all of history at once, without beginning or end. Theologians like St. Augustine of Hippo offered a profound reflection on this idea in his work, Confessions. He suggested that time itself was a creation of God. God in this view exists in an eternal present where the past, present, and future are all equally accessible to him. Time, therefore, is something we experience, but for God, it's a non-issue. He is timeless. For Augustine, God's timelessness also means he sees all of history in a single glance, meaning that God's knowledge is not limited by time. Every event from the beginning of creation to the end of the world is as present to God as the current moment is to us. This view raises profound theological implications. If God is outside of time, then how do we understand his interaction with our timeline? Time and salvation, the role of God in human history. Despite this divine timelessness, most religions also affirm that God does engage with time, especially when it comes to salvation and revelation. Take Christianity, for example. God enters time through the incarnation of Jesus Christ. The idea that God took on human form and lived within human history is a powerful way of understanding how the eternal intersects with the temporal. The life, death, and resurrection of Jesus are viewed as pivotal moments in the unfolding of salvation history. God, though eternal, enters the temporal world to bring humanity back into relationship with himself. In Hinduism, the relationship between time and God is expressed through the concept of Kalachakra, or the Wheel of Time. The divine is not outside time, but works through it. The cyclic nature of time in Hindu thought, where time is seen as a series of repeating cycles, yugas, suggests that the divine is involved in both creation and destruction within the temporal world. God's role here is intertwined with time's endless flow, bringing both creation and dissolution in a never-ending dance. Similarly, in Buddhism, enlightenment is often framed as the transcendence of time itself. While time is an illusion in some Buddhist teachings, the path to nirvana, an eternal state of liberation, is a journey that unfolds through time. It's a gradual process of overcoming attachments, including attachment to the idea of linear time. God's relationship with time in the modern era. As modern philosophy and science have advanced, new questions emerge. Does time really exist as we perceive it? In the realm of physics, we learn that time may be more fluid than we think. The theory of relativity suggests that time is not an absolute, universal measure, but rather something relative to the observer's position in space and speed. Albert Einstein's famous equation, E=mc², showed that space and time are interconnected, forming the very fabric of the universe. Some modern theologians have used these scientific ideas to suggest that God might interact with time in a way we cannot fully comprehend. Perhaps God can see time as we see a landscape, able to view all of it at once, but also participating in its unfolding. Time and the human experience. Our search for meaning. For us, as human beings living within time, the experience of time passing is often intertwined with our search for meaning. Time's impermanence brings us face to face with our own mortality. The fleeting nature of life prompts existential questions. What happens after time runs out? Does time have a purpose in the grand scheme of things? Or is it just a random, fleeting experience? In religious contexts, time holds the key to spiritual growth and salvation. Whether it's the concept of eternal life in Christianity, moksha, liberation from the cycle of life and death in Hinduism, or nirvana in Buddhism, time often plays a crucial role in spiritual progress. We are in time, yet striving to transcend it. Our journey through time leads us toward a higher state of being, a return to the divine, or a return to our truest self. So, what does this all mean for us? The idea that God exists outside of time opens up profound theological questions about creation, free will, and the nature of salvation. Whether God moves within time or stands beyond it, the truth seems to be that time is more than a measure. It's a bridge between us and the eternal. We experience time, but we are also perhaps being shaped by it in ways we cannot fully understand. As we journey through our lives, time may just be the tool that brings us closer to the divine, or perhaps the great mystery that ultimately connects us all. And in this infinite flow of time, we might just catch a glimpse of eternity. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of God, time, and eternity. If you found this topic thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more discussions on philosophy and religion.